we're going to pick up where we left off in our last discussion on the topic of narcissistic emotional abuse for the cathartic purpose of setting the record straight in the name of holy truth, divine love, and universal honor. The murderous satanic witches that have threatened the lives of my 2 young children have summoned the blinding light of the Phoenix Dragon, which now brings all dark corners alight and reveals the secret and hiding places where truth has been concealed for the purpose of deceiving others for years. It is dirty and unwelcomed work for those who would wish to see their lies stand in the place of truth until the end of time, but the time of their lies has ended and now it is time for the truth to be revealed. Those of you who have not completed the homework that was assigned to you in Catharsis may wish to go back and review that material before proceeding here, as I will not be going over the principles underlying the formation of a narcissistic injury in this session. The narrative of our case study left off with yours truly at the helm of all the domestic duties in the household, being the tending of 2 very young children, one with special needs and one still not quite a year old, the supportive caregiving of my quadriplegic older brother, and all of the paperwork and hoop jumping involved in negotiating with a bank to avoid foreclosure, in addition to working towards the completion of a master's degree in leadership and organizational development within the School of Business at Fresno Pacific University, which is a privately held Mennonite institution of non-traditional education. By this time, I was no longer working as an insurance agent, partly due to the market instability and radical changes made to my commission percentages as a result of the Obamacare legislation and partly due to the fact that my narcissistic abuser had begun to ratchet down on her obsessive control over me. The holiday season of 2015 was the beginning of the darkest days for all of us in the household, as events would reach their irreversible climax of destruction by the end of February the following year, and our lives had become dominated by the delusional ravings of the violent and unpredictable abuser among us. One thing I have since come to learn about myself is that, for most of my life, I had been in a bubble of limited perception for the evil that lurks in the heart of others. Despite all the victimization that I had experienced in my life at the hands of the women closest to me, I had somehow managed to keep a firm boundary around my conscious perception that would only allow for the best intentions of all to achieve the peaceful harmony and quiet bliss, which I had unconsciously accepted that we were working towards as a couple and in accordance with each other. What a fool I was to never endeavor into the secret scheming and manipulative plotting for the complete destruction of my life partner, our family, and our home. I innocently took each successive step which had been laid out for me and trustingly found myself suddenly standing face to face with the butcher. And I had only that split second to realize what had happened before the skillful blade of the greedy butcher drew down upon my neck, fatally piercing me and spilling my lifeblood out in hot sanguineous pools around the treacherous feet of my murderer. To this day I couldn't pretend to know why, and I believe I may never fully understand. But I can tell you there was a moment where something changed in the mother of my children. From that point forward, which I estimate to be around late summer of 2015, she appears to have proceeded down a path that is consumed with my ultimate destruction. While I had no awareness whatsoever at the time about narcissistic personality disorder, its origins in an individual, its telltale behavior pattern manifestations, the pathological destruction associated with it, the cognitive dissonance-inducing alternate reality gaslight coercion that's a part of it, I could see that something wasn't right and, from that point forward, her attacks on me only escalated. All at once in the summer of 2015, and for no real reason that I ever understood, she became seemingly convinced that I had somehow dishonored our family partnership with another woman. And, since she had taken possession of my driver's license and bank cards, my social security card and my car keys, she knew she had completely restricted my ability to ever leave the house. So, she began to accuse me daily, and still continues with this accusation, of having a relationship with another woman in our home while she was at work. It's like talking to a politician who refuses to acknowledge the facts so they can keep pushing the narrative that fits their agenda, and are trying to bring everyone along with them. They call it pulling the wool over someone's eyes because they are acting deceitfully as a wolf in sheep's clothing. And I am the lamb. And she is the wolf. As I continue through the emotional processing involved in the healing of this deeply injurious non-physical wounding, and I elect to spend time consciously empathizing with this brutal abuser in search of a better understanding, I've been led to draw certain conclusions concerning the mental operations that continue to drive this bizarre behavior. The first thing is that she fell into a deep depression, by her own admission, after giving birth to our son. I surmise it was due to the triggering of her narcissistic wound, which simultaneously prevented her from forming a deep emotional bond with her baby, or anyone else for that matter, while at the same time poured buckets of shame and guilt on her for not being able to do so. For whatever the reason, her withdrawal meant that our baby necessarily grew an attachment to me as his constant caregiver and, as such, was the situation that she created. Even so, I always knew that, when she saw the innocent and open-hearted love which my son and I shared, she was deeply jealous. The second thing is that she viewed her next pregnancy as her final opportunity to even the scoreboard and form an equally deep emotional bond with her much-anticipated baby girl. The stakes were higher for her this time because she would be turning 40, the anguish of an aging narcissistic female is another discussion, and she had decided that she would undergo a tubal ligation procedure at the time of delivery. When she and the baby returned home, however, she found that she could not do as she had hoped and so lost her high-stakes bid and helplessly watched as history repeated itself. This time, her withdrawal took the form of returning to work within days of recovering from the 2 procedures and spending long hours either at the Canine Academy or at a friend's house before making her way back home at night. These were stressful times for me because I was forced to unilaterally juggle all the demands of the household with a newborn baby, my amazing 4.5-year-old boy, my paralyzed brother, cooking, cleaning, changing diapers, making bottles, staying in touch with the loan officer, and finishing grad school while she disappeared and had to be chased down for groceries. And that is how she wanted things to be. And she was manipulating us all to serve her pathological need to feel superior in some way after having been confronted with her feelings of being inferior in what she considered as her failure to emotionally connect with our children on the same level that she saw me doing so effortlessly. And that is how things continued for nearly a year. That's about enough for today, kids. I thought we were going to have enough time to close out the chapter here, but I think it's important to get a clear idea of the psychological agents that are driving the behaviors of delusions and destruction that we're going to be taking a look at in our next session. Don't forget to turn in your homework. I think everybody here is capable of giving me 500 words on how what we've talked about today could play a role in fueling the pathological envy underlying an abusive narcissistic parent's juggernaut agenda of parental alienation, given your understanding of the nature of a narcissistic injury. Just a heads up, because, if you're not clear on what the psychological agents are, and how and why they are operating in our case study, then the behaviors of delusions and destruction that follow are not going to make sense to you.